It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
No fear, no fear, no fear, no fear. Here on Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock, each and every day from Phoenix, Arizona. Hey, from the beautiful studios of Freedoms with an S, freedomsphoenix.com. On the line with me, I have Lisa Hajjar. She's professor in the sociology department at the University of California, Santa Barbara. She's co-editor of the new journal, Jadaliyya. She's going to help me with that. And it's Jadaliyya.com. That's Jadaliyya.com. Now, the reason that I wanted to speak with Lisa, she recently wrote an article, Omar Suleiman, the CIA's man in Cairo and Egypt's torturer-in-chief. Okay, now she's also author of Courting Conflict, the Israeli military court system in the West Bank and Gaza. That will be of interest. And working on a book about the anti-torture lawyering in the United States. So she definitely, I would imagine, has an opinion about what's going on in Egypt. Do you have an opinion, Lisa?
Yes, I do. Well, I think what's happened in the last 48 hours or 72 hours has been a wonderful way to end a 30-year dictatorship. However, there is a lot left to be done. And as you mentioned, Omar Suleiman, remains in power despite his ignominious legacy as, Egypt's principal torturer for international prisoners brought in internationally.
Okay, now let's go ahead. I want to, go. We got an hour, so we're going to go ahead and try and get down some nitty gritty. We've been having a lot of people on the show discussing what's going on in Egypt. Let me cut to the chase, give you my opinion, and I want to see how far off I am from your opinion. So we're not going to sugarcoat it here. This is a hardcore, no compromise, libertarian, anarchist type show. Freedom's the answer. What's the freaking question? Okay. I am of the opinion that throughout certainly modern day, his last couple of hundred years of Egypt, since Napoleon back in 1798 was there doing his invading, since then, there has always been a Western influence and or direct control of the government in Egypt. Even after the Cairo fires in 1952, when the people, the British tried to, no, Suez Canal zone's all ours and go away and we'll machine gun you and you can't play and whatever, and the people rioted. From that moment on, it's always been some kind of a modern-day Egypt where you got Naib or whatever his name was, Nasser, Sadat, Mubarak, and it always seems that every time you go through these transitional governments, that it comes right back to the West being in control, if not majorly influencing. And when you're giving somebody $60 billion over, 3 decades, I am of the opinion that, he's your boy. So you look at Omar, and I'm going, and he would be different in what way?
Well, in fact, I'll correct you on one point. The period from the Free Officers' Revolution in 1952 until, during the whole reign of Gamal Abdel Nasser, Egypt was among the non-aligned countries, led the non-aligned movement, and consequently was much more took arms, etc., from the Soviet Union and the Soviet bloc because, particularly after 1967, the United States increased its foreign and military aid to Israel. However, it was after Nasser died and Sadat came to power and particularly after the 1973 war, when President Anwar Sadat decided to shift Egypt's alliance back towards the West, that you then see a kind of a rekindling of those relationships. And it was as a result of the Egypt's unilateral effort to, initiate peace talks with Israel in 1977 that led to the Egyptian-Israeli peace treaty that solidifies, in a sense, Egypt's relationship to the United States and the amount of aid that Egypt receives from the United States, which is proportionally linked to the amount of aid that Israel receives from the United States. Really?
So it's proportional. Let me go and get clarification on one thing. When I say Egypt, what am I really talking about? I'm not really talking about the sands of the Sahara. What I'm talking about is the Suez Canal. Okay.
No, actually, you're talking about the Nile Valley, and the vast majority of Egypt's population lives from Alexandria down through the Nile, and Cairo is there. The Suez, is geostrategically important, but that's not a significant locus for Egyptian domestic politics.
Okay, let me go ahead and ask this question. From 1952 to 77, when we started getting into Camp David and so on, who controlled the Suez Canal?
Well, there was a war in 1956. In fact, President Nasser, in coming to power after deposing the free officers, deposed the king, they basically wanted, as many countries did in their post-colonial period, wanted to nationalize major resources and institutions. And so Nasser moved to nationalize control of the Suez Canal rather than having foreigners controlling it. And as a result of that, Britain, France, and Israel aligned together and attacked Egypt in order to reverse the effort to nationalize the Suez Canal. And ironically, it was the administration of Dwight Eisenhower, in cooperation with the Soviet Union, that essentially forced Britain, France, and Israel back out of the canal zone and allowed Egypt to nationalize and control the Suez Canal in 1956.
Okay, are they now that held?
Yes. There's obviously, after Sadat, when Sadat, once the peace treaty with Sadat, with Israel came, Sadat very much moved Egypt, and Mubarak has moved Egypt even more so into the kind of neoliberal, multinational, capitalist model. So now, one can say that there is a great deal of Western penetration in Egypt, but it's primarily along sort of corporate, global, multinational types of interests. But Egypt,
okay, now let me ask this question. Now that you're of the mind that Egypt really is the Nile Valley. That's
that's where all the population resides.
Okay, well, yeah, they're not living in the desert. All right. So my point is this. If you have Egypt, where you got 17, 20 million people living just in Cairo out of 80 million people there, I'm going, all right, well, I'm sure most of the people, Nile Valley, that's where they're at. Do they care about the Suez Canal?
Absolutely.
Well, why?
Because it's a national. First of all, it's a source of. It's territorial. Do we care about Texas? Do people in California care about Texas? Yes, it's part of the United States.
Okay, now see, this is the point. I want to get. I want to get the personal importance of the Suez Canal. You just say, nope, it's Nile Valley. And I'm going, okay, well, does Suez Canal have anything to do with that? Well, okay, I need to know, because that was the attempt before. Every attempt has always been, because a lot of people don't know, the Suez Canal has been around since the 1860s. This is a long time ago. So we're, 130, 40 years ago. So I'm going, wow, man, that's an old piece of real estate. So I would think that the Egyptian people would say, yes, it's ours. Well, there's a lot of the people say, no, we want it to be ours to the point that we're willing to machine gun you. We're willing to invade you. We're willing to have tanks and fighter jets. So I'm going, all right. So the Suez Canal is important enough that it is seen and felt as part of Egypt, correct?
Well, it is part of Egypt, and it is part, and it's okay. And it's also, it in some ways it boosts Egypt's international significance because of the importance of the Suez Canal as a, transit for the movement of goods, across the globe. The Suez.
Okay, we're going to talk about when we come back with Lisa Hajjar, because it's just like Panama. Do you think the U.S. doesn't have influence there? Well, who has influence in the Suez Canal? and how might it manifest in the future? We're going to find out with Lisa Hajjar when we come back in just a little bit.